Welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. You are listening to a podcast by Pastor Eric Siepen and Pastor Andy Littleton. If you enjoy Faith Over Breakfast, we encourage you to rate it on the Apple Podcast app, on Spotify, or Google Play. Thank you and enjoy the podcast.
Welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. I am Andy Littleton from Mission Church in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm sitting with Eric Siepen.
Leaning close to Eric Siepen. I'm going to lean closer to you.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just working on my posture this morning.
Okay, that's
what's happening.
That's good.
Well, we just had a conversation with Propaganda and a couple of friends of mine from Mission. You might recognize these folks from conversations we've had, but John Simon and Mike Almaroth were with us for this one. And because we're doing kind of a dual podcast, but this was a unique opportunity for us, I think. To we've discussed before, maybe we should interview some folks, and this one was kind of put out there for us as an option, and we I think we're just excited that they said yes. So, Propaganda has a new book out called Terraform, and he is trying to explain that book, his journey, kind of help people understand what it's about, what he's about. And that's what we did. We walked through that with him and these guys from my church.
Yeah, so it's a first dual podcast between Odd Church and Faith Over Breakfast.
Dual or dueling?
Dueling podcast.
Yeah. That's right.
Whatever. It's Odd Church is your church's podcast.
That's right.
And Faith Over Breakfast is not the Village's church podcast, but it's just us.
Right.
So
Right. And you guys have Healing the City.
we have Healing the City.
So the real question is, like, when are we gonna get all your friends on one that I sit in and try to navigate?
Yeah,
we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Anyway, Propaganda. He is a hip hop artist. I had somebody at our church say, like, did you just talk about like propaganda, like political propaganda? I went, we need a better intro. So Propaganda is a hip hop artist. He's been around for a long time and started out in the Christian hip hop scene with a group called the Tunnel Rats, and then became pretty well known as he kind of started his solo career, helped found, if not being the founder himself, of a record label called Humble Beast. That is, it's pretty well known in those circles. Started getting featured with his poetry and conferences and such, like Catalyst, which is kind of the Andy Stanley, Craig Rochelle world. They kind of discovered him, and he got featured there. And at this point has broken a little bit out of the Christian only scene and is doing a show called Hood Politics on iHeartMedia, for example. And so he still considers himself to be planted in the community of the church, but has also expanded his reach and is grappling with issues that are bigger beyond the church, that involve the church, that the church needs to consider. So his book Terraform is about if you were to imagine and create a world that didn't have to just follow the pre-existing models, what would that look like? Why not use your imagination to do that? And he, as he said in this podcast, it was very much him figuring out his own journey and inviting other people on something similar.
Yeah,
so,
it's a fun little ride.
Yeah.
Enjoy the podcast.
All right, well, let's get some in-house stuff going so we can revisit this at the end. We're doing a thing called What's in the Duck. We just decided we're going to make a little sting for it so we can have an audio and maybe a little video thing that pops up. What's in the duck? This is what happens. We're asking you, as the listener, what's in the duck? What's in the duck? We're asking each other, what's in the duck? We're making some guesses, and we're going to see who is right at the end.
I want to ask a quick question of our guest. If you had to rename this, John came up with what's the squallard and the mallard or something like that. If you had to name this just off the top of your head, Propaganda, what would you name it?
Man, what's in the duck?
Put him on the
Squallard
spot.
and the mallard. Man, off the top of what's in the duck's pretty good, but I would say what the duck.
Yeah.
What in the duck? Like,
Yeah.
What in the duck?
What in the
that.
duck?
That's good. All right, well, here's the clue. It helps you hear but makes no noise.
Oh, helps you hear but makes no noise.
So it's kind of abstract.
A clever toy for girls and boys.
Are you going to rhyme it now?
Oh, crap.
He's just trying to show off in front of the
Dude,
professional.
you don't want to.
Sorry.
Anyways.
I'll stop right now.
So real quick, it helps you hear, but makes no noise. John, what do you think? If you had to take a guess, something that could fit inside of a small porcelain duck.
Helps you hear but makes no noise. I don't know. I actually have no idea. I don't know.
Okay. John has no guess.
Headphones.
Okay.
Empathy.
Ooh.
All right.
Duck is full of it.
Full of empathy.
A small stethoscope.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You want to take a guess, Prop?
Yeah, I was gonna say noise canceling headphones.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Cool. We'll revisit. That being said, I had an interesting. We were talking earlier. You know, you're doing all these interviews. You're probably getting a lot of the same questions.
Yeah.
What is a question that nobody's asking you yet that you wish they would?
I wish they would.
Mm.
Let's see. What are they asking? Wow, that's a good one. What are they asking me
Or what are they not?
What are
What's
they
the
not
question they're
asking
not
me?
asking you?
Mm-hmm.
that I wish they would? Man, like, people have asked, somebody's asked that. I mean, I've been on interviews since 5:30 this morning.
Oh my
so I'm like,
goodness.
okay. Yeah, I was like, I've kind of gotten
Sorry,
a lot of them. Maybe the idea of like, does your spouse like it? Is she into this? Or how many of these ideas are actually hers?
Ah,
That's a good
yeah.
question.
Oh, well, I think we just asked you that question.
Yeah, how many of these ideas?
Wait, I get to just give you. Hold up now.
Not just giving questions away.
I'm not just giving
That's
them
actually
away
all
here,
we've
man. You
got,
guys got
by
to
the
work
way.
with them. Yeah, just like all of my work, pretty much all of it is her idea.
There you
Wow.
go.
You know what I'm saying? Or something we've discussed together. My wife's the actual academic. I'm the creative that's interested in academics. So with me, how do I like to say this? I hear what she's saying in the academic language of it, but I'm like, that's not digestible, nor do I really understand what you're saying.
Right.
So a lot of it gets put through my own grid. And then sometimes like I'll have an idea for myself and I'll tell her that in the most flowering, artistic way of it being said. And then she goes, oh yeah, there's a term for that. It's blah, blah, blah. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh.
So you're a translator. You're
a
translating academic to artistic.
Yeah, I'm translating, theological to street. I'm translating street to political, translating.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Well, probably wanted to kind of ask a couple. I wanted to ask at least one question about the music because, at this point, your platform, you're, known as an author. Many know you as a podcast guy. But I'd say a lot of people also know you just from like your work in Humble Beast. Both Andy and I have been we've been in love with Christian hip hop for well over a decade, and so we're familiar with not just like your early Humble Beast days, but your Art Ambidextrous, your Tunnel Rats. Working with just all of the legendary crews from back in the day.
Yep.
So I'm curious, like if there was maybe an artist during your musical career that you had the opportunity, or maybe never had the opportunity to work or collaborate with, like who would that have been?
That I never had an opportunity to work with.
That you wish you would have worked with?
Right.
Yeah.
That I wish I would have worked with. Man, that's a good question, man. I think in the Christian world or just in general?
we
Anywhere,
can go
I'd say.
all over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's like the dead ones. So like, I wish I could have worked with Jay Dilla at some point.
Right.
I Diggable Planets, I think, would have been super rad to make something.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out the Johnny Swim thing, which is always frustrating because like we have the same manager and like he was like 10 minutes from me. And I'm like, they were on like the last 3 records we were slated to do music together. and it just didn't happen, you know? So I'm like, there's the part of me that's like, God dang it, man, come on. You know, I have this like uncanny ability of like catching people right before they become megastars. And it's a gift, man. And that was it. Like we were going to work on a song. They had the sessions and everything. And then the next thing I know, they're on the cover of Vogue. Oh, man. So I'm like, well,
guess not.
You know, that's that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Prop, I didn't realize how into Sufjan you were until recently.
Oh yeah,
man, I started kind of imagining a Sufjan Prop album. Ooh. Like what would that look like?
Be real ethereal.
Dude, yeah, actually, okay, if we're going there, then like, yeah, dude, like we need an Incubus record. I need a Sufjan record.
Yeah. Okay.
Man, that would be incredible. I need a Death Cab for Cutie album. Like if we're going there, that's where we going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, bro.
All right. I like that. Prop, I was just going to throw out there too, like another thing that, I mean, as soon as I opened up your book, one of the things that hit me was just DJ Effecto. And I know you wouldn't, I've never met you. I'm good friends with Pike.
Yeah, man.
So there was like a meal you were having with some of those dudes in Tucson that I just couldn't quite make. So we just missed getting to shake hands back in the day. But
yeah.
Interestingly, somehow Effecto and I had connected because I used to own a wood shop, and we were going to make him this big cutting board, and then it turned into he wanted a prep table, and then it turned into we were going to do a Humble Bistro video in my wood shop, like with him cooking inside the shop. And then one day, like I texted him and I didn't hear back, and I thought that's weird, that's different, and he died, man. And you were very much like on my mind for months, because I in my early 20s I lost my best friend in a car accident, and not a lot of people have lost somebody that like really close
to you
in your younger years as well. And so I just wanted to say, like, as I saw his name at the beginning of the book, I realized, man, just as you work and you build and you pursue this stuff, I assume that he's in your heart, and just like, and probably a lot of other folks as well. So just wanted to put out there that I felt you on that. And
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah. How has he left a legacy in your work here?
He's the most gentle, loving, freakishly talented, you know, got on my nerves because we were really friends, you know.
Right.
There's so much about him that, like, even at when we were putting together like his fundraising show and just different things, people were coming out of the woodworks about his kindness and projects he had happening. And I'm like, I saw this fool every day.
Yeah.
Like when one lady was like, he would drop off my son to school every morning because, you know, he was getting bullied and he needed a ride, so he would take him to school every day. And I'm like, when? Like, are you serious? He did this? You know, our boy Daniel Steele, when Daniel Steele got surgery, like, he was like, yeah, he flew to Jersey to help nurse him to health, like showering him and like literally like showering him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm like, when did you do this? Like, I was with you the whole time, you know? So just this idea of like his kindness wasn't on display. It wasn't for everybody. It was because this is who he was. I know he was teaching my daughter how to use a DSLR camera. I know he was, you know, he was, you know, he taught the other one how to read. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I knew he was doing this in our house, but I was like, well, that's because I see you every day. Like, you're my best friend, you know? But
you didn't realize there was community building around this guy. He was it's just him serving people all over the place, man.
Yeah. Incredible, man.
Well, man, I know it's been a while, but I'm just continue to be sorry for your loss, man. It's been 15 years for me with my friend, and it keeps coming back. So anyway, just wanted to express that. And So now tell us about the book. I mean, we've got this book in front of us. I just got done with it. We got an early copy or two, and so it's but yeah, Terraform, building a better world. Can you just cast the vision for this thing? Like, what are you hoping? Why do you want people to read it, and what are you hoping the impact of this book is?
Yeah. So the book is a collection of poetry and short form essays, all around this concept of terraforming, which is, or terraform, which is just the process of like science fiction nerdery. You find a distant planet in the process of making that planet livable to support human life. Is called terraforming.
Yeah.
And so the idea I had was like as a creative springboard was, well, if I'm looking around Earth, it's becoming less and less livable, whether it's the actual terrain or it's the way that we treat each other, our socio-cultural, interactions, our communities, our neighborhoods, and then our homes and really ourselves, like our inner life. It's just finding that like, man, it's kind of not working, guys, So what if we thought about terraforming our own space? And I just wanted to, I don't have any answers in this. Like, it's not, my book's not a Bible,
Right.
It's not, it's a creative process where I'm really just trying to challenge you to just, can you still dream? Can you still imagine, because where we are now was just imagined.
Yeah.
Somebody made it up, so let's make up something better.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important concept for us all to be digging into. I mean, as a ministry at Mission Church, one of the things we're really pushing into and really trying to embody as a congregation is really just non-homogeneity. We don't want everybody here to be the same. We have a diversity of ideologies, and man, it was rough. Even last year, we went through this series called Political Discipleship, where we talked with each other about how politics can just absolutely tear us apart in ways that are really non-essential.
And it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah.
And we're really trying. We're really pushing into casting the vision of of different ideologies united by the gospel, united by God.
Yeah, man. And it's like a lot of us in our heads are like, that's not even possible.
Right.
Yeah.
We just got,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like give up on that because it's not going to happen. Right.
It's not going to happen. You can't there will never be. And I'm like, well, why? Like why not? Because how we got here now was just made up. So
yeah.
Why can't we make up something else?
We're living out of stories we told, right? And
we
already
are.
Yep.
Yeah, we already are living out the stories we told.
And I caught that in your book. Like, let's examine that and look at your own story, the story you're telling. Then why can't you tell a different one? Why can't you?
Yeah.
Why can't you go back and re-examine this? You did early in the book. You had this little call out where, and I assume the book is written to a general audience, but you made this little call out to your faith-based audience, and you kind of said, hey. Don't just stop and say, look, the problem is sin. We need Jesus. Our prophets had more imagination than that, and so on. Yeah. And I think that, those kind of statements worry people because they go, oh, you don't believe in sin or Jesus, maybe, but I know that's not what you're saying. So what I wanted you to unpack is kind of how have you seen that mindset get in the way of what you're proposing here? Like, what's the problem with that truncated mindset?
It lacks imagination because my question is, how has that played out? Mm-hmm. But just stopping there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did Jesus stop there? Like, was that it? That'd be a short scripture, I guess, huh? I guess we wouldn't need the Exodus narrative.
Right.
Like, you wouldn't need any of the law. You wouldn't need the prophet. It's a short Bible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, your own holy text isn't that simple.
Yeah.
Your own text is complicated, So I think that like when you pull back and just again have a little bit of self-awareness, have a little bit of space between, here's a good example of that. Like the Peter Barger, which is where I got some of the like sociological concepts is from this book called The Sacred Canopy. He gives this example of this, like, if you were to talk to a tropical fish, if it could talk, like, you know, if you were to ask him, like, what do you think of like the cold waters of the deep? And the fish's answer would probably be what's water? Because you don't know you're in it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that, like, getting, especially among us with like Western evangelical American Christians, like forgetting that, like, okay, we're 11% of the body of Christ. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like 11%. We are very little. So even our issues, the church don't even have them.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's a us problem, you know. But since you in it, you feel like, oh my God, all the world is talking. Like, oh man, critical race theory. What is this? And I'm like, okay, ask the church in Calcutta,
Right.
if they talking about critical race theory.
Right.
No, you know what I'm saying? They're like, what are you talking? What do you mean? You know. So I think that, like, we have a way of like seeing our world as the whole world. So, and that's, for me, is like, the way I'm trying to say that is like, that's a lack of imagination.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And we don't, it gives us kind of an inability to understand that perspective really shapes the way that you understand things. And even, I mean, we've got our cultural and our national kind of perspective. We don't realize we're swimming in, but then we also got these little like reefs that we exist in, right? Or we got these little,
yes, that's good.
We got these little we got these subsets where we have different ideas, and we don't realize that's just in a different assumed idea that I have. And I don't understand the dialect they're speaking over here in this reef because I don't know those words, and that just seems dangerous.
Yeah.
And I grew up in this reef, and this reef makes total sense to me. And that's where the whole zooming out, you talked about the view of the earth from above, right? Like when you fly out into outer space and you look down, you go, oh, look, there are no borders, actually, it turns out. And all the cities just turn into kind of a general glow. Like that sort of helps. It's like we need moments, prophetic moments where people go, no. Look, you know, I don't know. It's like a Finding Nemo moment here. There's a big ocean, but you got to consider, and God's even way outside of all that. We don't even understand his perspective on all this. Yeah.
Well, a lot of these issues seem to start with the things we're afraid of. The ones that we hold on to the tightest are the fears that we have. Like, what if that means this destroys us, or what if that means this destroys this person? They just don't realize they're doing that. And I gotta tell them so they can change their mind, so they can do the right thing that's acceptable in the eyes of the Lord, which is completely antithetical to the gospel because it's not based on our actions. It's based completely on grace. And so I think a lot of times people, they think I'm doing the right thing. This is what needs to be done. But what ends up happening is they're trying to validate either themselves or try to help someone else make the right decision without considering the huge picture of sin that the Bible paints for us, which also gives us that huge picture of grace and love that God has for us.
I mean, it's a bummer. Like, we think of...
Nailed it.
I think, we think of the Western civilization and Western culture as having this like very bubbled kind of like contained and isolated viewpoint. But I mean, we live in a city of 1 million people. It's hard for a lot of us just to see what exists outside of our city. I mean, LA's got to be like that. And you guys are, 10 times bigger than our city is. So, it's like, how do you break someone out of a Western worldview when you can't even break them out of their own neighborhood, their own square mile they live in?
Facts.
I have a question. Just as you've been
the transient nature. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no problem. You are all over in the sense of where you've got your feet in different cultures, and especially when it comes to the church. Like what gives you hope as you look at this? Because I think in some ways, when you talk about imagination, we've offloaded that to, almost to the consumerist, you imagine for us, and we'll just sort of, take it. Like, what's hopeful when you look at the broad picture of the church?
Hopeful for me is the kids, man. It's like I think they saw through a lot of our BS, man. Like any generation does. You look back, you reflect back at the elders, and you like, okay, best practices. There's a few best practices up there, but then there's some of this that you like, man, y'all tripping, man. Why are you like this? You know what I'm saying? So I think for us, it's like I say, like the difference between an OG and an old head. You know what I'm saying? Like being an OG is like, I'm willing to invest in these young homies. I'm willing to listen to them. I want to pass down some game, pass down some wisdom. Being an old head is like, you young people are weird. Yeah. You don't know they don't know their Bibles anymore. It's like, all right, bro. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, they see Jesus in the margins. They see him in different places. They don't see him in the ivory tower you built. You know what I'm saying? You're a product of decadence. We're a product of a economic boom of the 90s. That's why there's such thing as a suburb. You know what I'm saying? Like we're a product of bigger things that we're not giving ourselves. We're being honest about. They're a product of the collapse of that. You know what I'm saying? Of these systems that we took for granted. They're a product of all that collapsing. So they're like, oh no, we see through it. You know what I mean? So to me, I'm like, we should be humbling ourselves and like playing our role as like sages. But besides that, be like, all right, nah, you got the vigor. You got the juice here. Look, tap in when you need it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But they, for me, like, that's where I see hope. That's where I see creativity.
Right. Not just kind of creating carbon copy leaders of the future, but listening.
Yeah, they need to be like, these are, I like to say, man, y'all are T3s. You know what I'm saying? Like you're the liquid Terminators. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm the old guy that's still like, I'm the Arnold Schwarzenegger version. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, sometimes we've talked a little bit about that in our circles, and I've even been challenged on this. Like, do I trust God with that? Like, do I trust God with the T3 getting the reins? But I remember, I'm 38, so just a little while ago, I was like, I've got ideas. You got to let me do this, and feeling like people were going, oh, no, you're not ready yet. You got, and there's something to like allowing that younger generation to see through some of the junk, and also letting them fail and grow. And I don't know, somewhere in there, we gotta let it happen. Cause I would assume you bumped into those. You probably bumped into a whole lot of roadblocks, right? Like, what was that like for you?
Oh, are you kidding me, bro? Yeah. that attitude of the old dudes that are like, hey man, you just got to keep on living. You know what I'm saying? And that like, that patience with me to let me, like you said, let me fall, let me like take my lumps, let me make my mistakes, kind of grew that humility that I feel like I've learned to carry now. Right. And that's my hope for the kids too, where it's like I have that sort of patience that people that allowed me to make my lumps. Like I'm actually learning a lot of that with my daughter right now, where, she's a teenager.
How old is she?
An alien. She's about to turn 16.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she's got her own sort of like issues and personality and stuff like that. And like me and my wife, like we're a tug of war in the sense that I'm the figure it out parent. Yeah. You don't need help. You're fine. You can do this. You just taught yourself how to use After Effects. You can figure out how to wash these dishes.
Right.
You know what 2:00 means. Like, you don't need me to tell you that. You know what I'm saying? So, whereas my wife is one that goes, would you like me to set you an alarm? Here, I can make you breakfast so that you'll be ready for when school starts. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, stop helping her, but the backlash of that is like, whenever she has a problem or a need or some emotional support, she go to her mama. She crawling. She want to watch a Netflix series with her not with me.
Yeah.
And that's breaking my heart, and it's like, well, these are the seeds I sowed. So, learning to like listen to them, listen to the way that they move and having that balance between being like, let me just be the you got to walk this tightrope yourself. Let me just be the net if you fall. And like trying to switch myself into that position is now like, you know, bringing it full circle with the book is like, that's a new world for me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's a new way to think about, and something I didn't imagine. I didn't picture parenting like that.
Right.
I pictured parenting the way I was parented.
Yep.
You know,
which is a theme in your book, is a lot of going back into your own story and examining that. And these things push you into that, right? You all of a sudden you're going, well, where did I get this? And what did happen to me actually? And
yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
So while writing this book, what did you discover about yourself that was surprising to you that you didn't expect to kind of discover?
That a lot of the concepts I was able to kind of unpack and go through was because of therapy. And it ended up being so much more about like getting healthy myself. And that so much of this book was really that. It was like, dang, this is really more about me getting healthy, you know? And I was very surprised about that because I've always seen myself as pretty okay. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I knew I had my issues, but I was like, oh man, this is more than I got some things. And I see like now at the other end of it where I was like, oh, that's because I went and got healthy.
Right.
I went and got help. Now I was able to like unclog the gunk to be able to be as creative and imaginative as this book called for, you know?
It's a strange thing to do a public work, like a public work of art, and realize what I just put out there was me sharing my journey of getting healthy. Like I wrote a book about the death of my father that is, you know, has a small audience, and I was terrified to put it out there because when I was done with it, I realized this was about me processing my life, right? And so I'm thinking you've been doing that in your artwork and poetry for a long time, but here is there something about the written word, like it's in a book, that is hitting you weird as you realize like how much of yourself you're putting out there, or are you pretty comfortable with it at this point?
Yeah, man. I think that like the thing that was, I've always written for performance.
Yeah.
That was always like my way of creating. It was like, how is this going to be live? How does this translate live? What are the pregnant pauses? How can I like, you know, create the moment live?
Yeah.
Writing it is like, oh, this is someone else's brain. So the words have to do the work. So seeing it on paper, and now I'm not hearing it out of my mouth, I'm hearing it in my head. Man. And I know that you're hearing it in your head was like, oh, this feels so much more vulnerable. And what's crazy was like reading the audiobook, like actually performing the audiobook was the most surreal.
Yeah, I was going to ask you
like,
about that.
It was so surreal because I was like, oh,
I'm reading
my words, you know, and like, how do you like separate yourself enough from it and not critique yourself while at the same time perform and deliver what you're hoping to deliver? It was a brain bender.
I have to say that's as somebody who just finished the book, I can say that my experience. So I've heard your work for years, and so an interesting thing happened where I read a hybrid of my voice and yours, I feel, because I know what your voice sounds like. It was interesting. Yeah. Like there were moments where I kind of was in a cadence and I was like, I think there were a couple of pieces that were older. I was like, I've heard this one before. I know how it works.
Yeah.
And then others that I didn't, and I realized it just sounded like little old stuffed up white boy me, you know, like reading that. I was like, that sounds weird, but that's all I got right now. And so and then to think of somebody picking up your book who is not familiar with your voice, and I've had that same thought of somebody reading my story, layering their story onto it and interpreting it through their lens and going, Well, this is a weird thing we just put out in the world here that's capable of this. It's an interesting process.
It's bonkers, bro. Like it was the weirdest, man. I can't even. Yeah, it was just weird, bro.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I had to do it. I think that like having to do it was in some ways like gave me enough like margins away from the book to be able to like hear it the way somebody else would hear it. And I'm hearing you say like, oh yeah, I kind of heard a hybrid of your voice and my voice. To me is like, okay, cool. That means I did it right then.
Yeah.
Right. You know.
How was the process of, because we didn't mention this yet, but you didn't just write Terraform, but you also released an album to kind of go alongside with it. How was the creative process of both writing something where you didn't have as much creative control and how it be perceived, and then making something actually more musical that you could have a little more say over?
Yeah. It was a trip. It was like I idealized all of it together, you know, and I was trying to make it so that they could stand alone.
Yeah.
But if you want them together, here's how.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And for me, that was like a fun sort of like, oh, okay, like these are two different ways you can come into this, depending on like how sort of engage, like the way for which you want to engage with this work. Like, so it was fun. It was fun to think of it in those terms as like, okay, these are two different experiences in the same universe. And I actually really, really, really enjoyed the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's an interesting thing I kind of write and release some music too, but there's an interesting challenge that you come up against when you're releasing something where it's really easy to already be hypercritical of yourself. And I mean, for me, a lot of times I just end up not releasing stuff because I'm like, paralyzed by analysis. But there's with that and with what you guys are talking about with the written word, there's this interesting challenge that is kind of presented to you where you have to release control of how it's perceived. You have to release control of what it is, almost, because once it gets out there, it's becomes something else because of the collective experience that everybody else has, and then then you're kind of challenged in that to be vulnerable. Yeah, but that's a really difficult
thing. It's not yours.
Yeah. But that's and I think there's.
I was.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
I was prepared for that as a musician because that's like that as in writing albums, like that's coming. You know what I'm saying? That at some point the people are going to decide what this record is, you know, what this song is like, and it's theirs, and it should be. That's how it should be. You should feel like it's yours. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if you're willing to like let that like let that go, then I think that like, you know, you can have that again, like that. My identity is not tied to so much what I think this is. Right. It's for you now, you know, because if that's the case, like you said, don't put it out.
Yeah. Well, and I think in there's like a really great parallel challenge that we can take from that and even present to, especially us, like the people that are in our congregation. And it's one we've been working on, but there is a necessitated vulnerability that happens when we try to come together despite differences. When we try to understand somebody, like we've just got to put ourselves out there and understand we might be misunderstood, but it's still worth it. We might be
absolutely,
you know,
which kind of comes back to your the whole marriage thing with your wife and stuff like that. And it's like a real living out of that in a very intimate setting. And then you're like releasing something out to the world, to the culture. But random question here, but if you were to walk into a thrift store and on that shelf you saw Terraform by Propaganda, what would you do with that copy in the thrift store?
Would
you take it?
Would you
one
buy
I'd see like no, I would see if people wrote any notes.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I would see what were their thoughts.
What they underlined.
I would sign it and then put it back on the shelf. And for a while I'd be bummed that oh man,
they didn't hold on
what I'm
to
saying?
it.
Hopefully this scenario is years down the road.
But it's all
Absolutely.
good. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, it served its purpose. That's why I was like, well, let me check to see if they wrote in it. Because if I'm like, you wrote in it, then I'm like,
to be
okay.
fair, I spoke to somebody a few days ago who told me every book she reads, she immediately gives away. She doesn't keep any books on her shelf once she reads them.
Love it.
It doesn't
Which is crazy to
necessarily
me.
mean
They
didn't like it.
Well, I've definitely
exactly.
found a band shirt or
Exactly.
two of mine at a thrift store in the day. So
Oh yeah.
I've seen my albums in the bargain bin. You know what I'm saying? It's part of the game. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. So really quick on that. So on this terraforming project, you talked about your wife and how she's shaped so many things. You talked about parenting and the different stories you have to learn to tell. How important is community in this? And it's like, how much do you see as like we're telling our story versus we're telling like our story, like bigger story? And that's complicated. But how do you encourage that?
Yes, the C.S. Lewis thing about like what reading does, how it gives you 1,000 eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're seeing the world through a whole different set of eyes. And I think that same's true about being in community. Yeah. It's seeing the world from multiple lenses and learning how to one, be so okay with yourself that it's like, I'm not going to get lost in that, but I'm also willing to let it ping against me, ping on me, and shape me and make me into a new person. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's the role. You know what I'm saying? Like there's an angle you don't know.
Yeah.
Now, like I said in the music, that said, I don't believe all ideas are equal.
Right.
Like, some ideas suck and should never be spoken out loud. You know what I'm saying?
And I appreciate that. I think that needs to be said more, right? Like, it's, just because we're going to listen to you doesn't mean that is true.
Yes, and we are equal in importance in the eyes of the Savior. We are equal in our person. But your idea might suck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't know what to say. And no one should hear that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I do still, hold to that. But I think community is where that's flushed out. Like, when I have a bad idea, like I can share it freely in a community I know of people that love me, where you're like, you're not attacking me as a person. You're just telling me my idea sucked. And I'm like, great. And I know you love me. So, and you'll probably tell me why it sucks. You know what I'm saying? And then I could be like, oh, okay. But if at the end of the day, something is like, I think, again, having the 1,000 eyes is like this idea of going, if we're coming at something with a whole lot of different angles and the conclusion is the same, then like at my point, I'm like, okay, this is not what you want from me. This is not what you're not. Okay, well, let me stop speaking in metaphor. It's like when I think about laws
right
in America around race and ethnicity, it's like after 100 years of trying to figure out how to legislate this thing, at some point you just have to be like, I think you just don't want us to live.
Right.
Like, it's just, that's kind of what's happening here. Like, Alabama just celebrated Jefferson Davis's holiday.
Right.
Like, you talk about the homie that lost, the dude that denounced his citizenship to the nation that you love so much and tried to destroy it. That man got a holiday.
Right.
And
a holy day.
Yes. And you don't, but I can't teach slavery in school. Okay. I get it. That's, now I know what you mean. Right. You're not worried about protecting intellectual integrity. You're not worried about it being one-sided. You just don't want us to live. Got it.
And I
know what I'm saying? So, but that happens after, like I said, listening to a lot of different voices.
Yeah. And I was just going to ask you a question about what is your prophetic word for the church, but I think you answered my question.
Oh, well, there it is.
Dope.
Yeah.
Dope.
Well, and it seems like the deepest communities that we're really after are ones where you can say something that important and know, like you said, like, but know, like, I'm saying this because I love you and I'm demanding that you love me. Like that, we have a commitment level here. If we don't have that, then I guess we don't have community.
Right.
But like real community is where that can happen.
You get those stupid, like, which, I mean, they just drive me crazy. Those like comments on your social media, all love, bro.
Right.
I'm saying this in love. It's like, no, you're not. You don't know me.
Yeah.
If you don't know me. All love, bro. It's like, man, you know what?
I've noticed this.
And so that's,
on social
so that's
media,
why it's so hard.
I'm sorry. I'll let you go. My bad.
Yeah, that's why oftentimes it's like it's so hard when we start talking about you as like church leaders talking about community and love. It's like that's what pings against us. You know, hey, I'm saying this in love, but you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And you can't talk here. Yeah. By the way.
Yeah. What did you like? What's my middle name, homie?
Yeah.
I'm talking about you saying this in love. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Well, that reminds me of what you were saying about Effecto, like how you drove you crazy, but you knew that this is somebody who is in your corner and is there day in and day out and like knows you inside and out. So when he speaks up or even just does something that you do not like, you're like, okay, you can do that because you're in my life. You are here. You're my guy. And I think we need thicker community like that to get this stuff done.
Yes.
Eric,
3 minutes.
Yeah,
we probably need to.
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I had a final question in here, which was basically, I hear you saying something to the effect of like you've proposed, we've been offered some binaries, and we can have way more imagination. We can do this differently. You put in some practices in the book to encourage us to kind of do that sort of stuff. What are a couple of, I mean, you're talking to church audiences right now. What are a couple of the two things you just say, like, if you can't ever get around to my book, please try this and this, please. What would you say?
I would say try reading off the naughty list.
Yeah.
Go,
read outside of your circles.
Eastern orthodoxies.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
There's a read outside your circle or something.
Read outside your circle. Look at your wall and be like, are these all white dudes? Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's stay comfortable. Why don't you try a white woman then?
Right.
Maybe that's easier. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I'm like, ease into it. I don't know. The point I'm trying to make is like, I think the easiest first step is like, hey, why don't you try? Just pique your curiosity.
Yeah.
Just try something else.
Yeah.
All right.
A lot of times looking outside forces us to look inside.
Ooh, wow.
Preach. That's preacher.
And speaking of looking inside, what's in the duck? What's in the duck?
What's the squall with the mallard?
It helps you hear. But it makes no noise.
Let's take a peek under the beak.
Ooh,
okay.
So, what's in the duck this week? It's a dongle.
Oh, damn.
We had some guys circling around it, man. You were close.
Oh, man.
We were very close.
Well, thanks a lot, Prop. It's been awesome. It's been a great conversation. We're so glad to have you on here. People, check this out. Check out the book. What website can they go to, Prop?
All of them.
PropHipHop.com.
PropHipHop.com.
Cool.
All right. Well, we appreciate you sharing your heart and your work with us and with the community at large. I hope it gets a lot of rotation. We'll be sharing it for sure. So
yeah, man.
Thanks for being with
guys.
us.
Appreciate y'all.
You've been listening to Faith Over Breakfast with Pastor Eric Siepen and Pastor Andy Littleton. Please share us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you.